Hey, what's up, guys? Thought I'd try something a little bit different. Today, I usually do a purely scripted thing with a teleprompter, and today I just have my iPad. So let's see how this goes. I'm Ian M. This is Worship Talks. So I tend to be critical. It's something God's been working with me on. I tend to see the negative easier than the positive. And this works out most obviously with people. And as a worship leader, it's easy to get really judgmental about, or judgmental of what I'm not used to, things that I don't do. It's taken me a while to realize that my style isn't the right one. You know, what I do isn't the right way. It's just different. But sometimes stuff, a worship song, whatever, just stands out as not good. You know, not by like my personal standard, because I have druthers, as they say, about different songs. There's some songs I just rather not do because I just don't personally like them. Some songs I really want to do because I like them. That doesn't make them good or bad. It's just, it is what it is. But some songs just, in general, they're not good for corporate worship. And by that, I mean, they're not good for the people of God gathering together on Sunday morning to sing together to Him. I pointed out some others that just aren't that great. You can find the card right there. But I've got to be honest, and I know this is a really unpopular opinion right now, but I find this song Waymaker just not a good song. Again, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but from the lyrics to the limited use of chords, it's just not a good song. It's not a well-written song. I mean, simplicity has its place in worship. No doubt about that. But what about the songs that just, all they do is they make you feel good? I firmly believe in excellence in everything we do. As Christians, that is so crucial in our reflection of who God is. But particularly in worship, it's very important. Psalm 33:3 says to play skillfully before the Lord. Now, my experience has tempered me to realize that what's skillful for me is not necessarily skillful for you. Not everyone's skill level is the same. What's really good for me is not really good for someone else. I've been doing this a long time, 18 years, give or take. And what I feel like is my best is not necessarily someone else's best. What is my best may be way above what someone else can do, or below what someone else can do. So someone else just playing on time, that may be their skillful sacrifice, their sacrifice of praise to God. Well, for me, adding in some extra chords, or, doing something a little bit different with the beat, with the tempo, that's me giving God my best. That part can be relative. What's not relative, though, is the attitude and intention behind our worship. Let me explain. You're probably familiar with the story of Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel were brothers, some of the first children of Adam and Eve, as far as we know. And Cain was a farmer, Abel was a shepherd. And they came before the Lord one day to make sacrifices. And Cain's sacrifice was rejected by God, and Abel's was accepted. And Cain got angry and eventually ended up killing Abel, his brother. Now, what the important thing to take away from this, especially for us in this situation, is that the difference between the two and how they brought their gifts. A lot of theologians or scholars of the Bible agree what the biggest difference is between the two. That isn't immediately obvious on first read. Because I'll admit, even though I'm a PK, this is a passage I kind of struggled with for a while. Like, why did God accept Cain's and not Abel's? But if you look at it, Cain kind of brought whatever he had, whatever grain or whatever was at hand. And Abel brought his best. He took time to find his best sheep and goats and bring them to God. He brought his best to God. And God was pleased with that. God was happy with that. God was not happy with Cain's half-hearted sacrifice. So let's take a close look at Waymaker. Like, for instance, the first verse: "You are here moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here working in this place. I worship you. I worship you." The second verse is: "You're here touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You're here healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you." Risking shameless self-promotion. Let's compare that to a song I wrote last year. "Our God controls the raging seas. He made the earth and heaven. He breathed the word and it was so, every syllable perfection. Extravagant in beauty, each particle he formed. Reflections of a holy God in every breath and storm." I can't take full credit for that, just as a sidebar, and because part of that came to me in a dream. So that was totally a God thing. But the comparison is apt. For something you might be a little bit more familiar with, as by way of comparison, "So Will I" by Hillsong, super popular a couple years ago. "And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I." There's just more detail. There's a good rhyming scheme. There's intention behind it. There's an attitude of, I am before a holy God who's bigger than I am, and I need to be intentional about this. I think Waymaker lacks that. I think Waymaker lacks any kind of uniformity and an awareness, an awe in it. Clearly, this song was just a train of thought that was kind of slapped together, probably in some worship session. They just kind of started doing it and then recorded it, and there it was. I have a problem with that because my trains of thought aren't always that great. But let's talk about what makes a good song. What is a good song? There's volumes and volumes of books that are written about that. From my experience, what touches people emotionally doesn't make a good song. There's a lot of songs out there that have come out in the past 20 years, most of which I don't even remember, that were hugely popular, and then they just kind of went away because there was just no depth to them. There wasn't an awareness of that awe. It's just kind of, it touched you emotionally, and then you cried and you went home. I enjoyed, let me put it this way. I enjoyed songs in my younger days when I was a teenager that I cringe at today. If any of you remember the band Insiders, when ska was super popular in Christian circles, Insiders was a terrible band. They really were. They tried to mix metal with ska, and it just did not work. It was bad. But at the time, I remember really being into some of their songs. And then I put that CD in my car a little while ago and just went, what was I thinking? That was terrible. Now, just because I enjoyed them at that time, that didn't make them good. I just understand music better now. I'm a better musician. I know theory a lot better, and I've broadened my tastes. I listen to a lot more broad and diverse music than I did before. No, I could do a whole nother video about this topic, but what I think makes a good song is simple. The basic building blocks, if you will. Good, legible rhyming scheme, Consistent meter, as in, simply put, the number of syllables in each line is close or basically the same, just to kind of give it that good flow. And solid dynamics that support the meaning and the flow and the story of the song. There's plenty of others to add, but we'll stick to these for now. Guys, Waymaker does not have good rhyming, or any at all, really. Any professional songwriter will tell you that trying to rhyme a word with itself is just lazy writing. But it's clear to me from just looking at the song and listening to it that even that was a happy accident. There's a somewhat consistent meter in this song, but I think that's honestly another happy accident, made clear by the fact that the writer of the song uses the same lines over and over again, and only swapping out a few key words here and there. You can see that in the bridge and in the verse. A professional songwriter who is proud of his craft would never put out a song like that. Guys, let's be honest, this kind of thing is a laughingstock of the secular world. Clearly, that should not be our qualifier for how we write songs. But it's something we need to consider. The dynamics are there, but take away the words, and this sounds like half the other popular worship songs out there. There's a painfully slow build up to the bridge, and then it just, you get emotional, and then it just kind of stops, and then you build up again for the chorus, and you sing until you are just so emotional, and just, you feel like you're worshiping. That's not good dynamics. That's just lazy. I mean, let's be honest. If your emotions have to be manipulated for you to feel something during worship, guys, that's something you need to fix in your relationship with God. I've been in worship services with a dude and his guitar who just played the song through that have been more powerful than a whole band doing everything the right way. All right, so let's look at the content of this song. Repetition doesn't equal quality. This is so important to realize. Yes, this is something that's going to be brought up. There are psalms that use a lot of repetition, but there's a very specific point to it and how it's done. I tend to think that the repetition in a lot of today's popular worship songs is just purely filler. A lot of these could be, 2-minute songs, but they end up as 8-minute songs because you just repeat the same thing over and over again. Or the repetition is just to ramp up the emotional response, almost like a mantra. Just, you're just kind of manipulating yourself into working up your emotions and getting yourself into a frenzy. So that's another problem with Waymaker as it was originally written. Who are we really worshiping? The God who doesn't need us or our own feelings. Because I think feelings play a bigger part in this for a lot of us. Guys, I've been there. Feelings become worship, and it's hard to differentiate between the two. It's hard to separate the two. I mean, this is why I think this song isn't good for the church at large and shouldn't be widespread. It will probably fall by the wayside in another year or so, but it's something we need to start thinking about as a church. I'm well aware that a lot of people are going to vehemently disagree with me, but Ian, it's what I use for worship and it moves me, so how can you call it bad? I've heard people say this, and I'll ask it again. Who are you singing it for then? Who is it for? Is it for you? So who are you worshiping? Our culture is very much oriented around our personal truth, and that thinking has crossed over into our worship, y'all. What works for me is all that matters, right? I mean, because that's my personal truth. That's for me. And who are you to say what works for me? No, guys, the only person who gets to say that kind of thing is God, because he's God and he made us. And at this point, we don't get the option to be selfish about our worship. We need to measure up to what God's standards for worship is. And we won't, but that's why Christ gives us the strength and the power through the Holy Spirit. not to manipulate our emotions to put us in a frenzy, but to help us to focus and worship him the way he deserves. We need to start asking ourselves with these songs, does this please God, even if it makes me feel good? Does it matter how I feel if what I'm singing doesn't measure up to what he deserves? Am I settling for mediocre? Am I pushing for excellence? Our God deserves the best that we can bring, not just whatever happens to work for us. We need to be more like Abel and less like Cain. We need to bring a sacrifice of praise that is truly good and intentional, and not just a half-hearted, emotionally based, blah, to use a technical term. I think a lot of people are starting to feel the same way, honestly, because there's a noticeable thirst for deeper, better content in songs and worship. I mean, regardless, we need to do what we're told in Philippians chapter 4. And it says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any moral excellence and if there's anything praiseworthy, dwell on these things. Not whatever is convenient, makes us feel good, or is mediocre, but what is commendable and praiseworthy and lovely. Let's find the good worship songs and songwriters like the Gettys and their people, Matt Boswell, Matt Papa, Sovereign Grace Music. They've got some great stuff. And others, like me, cough, follow me on Spotify. Let's encourage more good things in the church, and let's leave mediocre behind us, because God deserves more. God deserves better. So in order to mend the issues I've seen and hopefully pointed out with this song, and I hope I did that and wasn't just rambling, I added and changed some words to the song. This is the new version, and this is what I'm going to be doing with my congregation. I kept some stuff and left some stuff out. For instance, verse 1, you are here moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. Clothed in light, banishing all fear. We worship you. We worship you. Holy guide, for us this path has cleared. We worship you. We worship you. And the chorus is the same. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. And verse 2. Verse 3. You are good, kind, and merciful. I worship you. I worship you. Lead us home, the joy more plentiful. I worship you. I worship you. We will rise, meet you in the air to worship you. We worship you. Jesus Christ, a place for us prepared. We worship you. Yeah, we worship you, Lord. Again, chorus the same. And I tweaked the bridge, not a lot, but just enough, because working, it gets old. Even when I don't see it, you're shining. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop moving. So that's what I'm going to be doing with my congregation. I hope some of them are watching this and that they get what I'm going for with this. It's not because I'm just this super great worship leader or songwriter, but that I want to give what is the best, what the best that I can give to my God, who deserves it and who has done some great things for me, but is holy and deserves more than just ramped up emotions. So, all right, so what do you think? Am I being overly critical? Am I being crazy? What do you see that is working or is not working for the church today? Leave a comment below. Let's keep it civilized and Christ-like, and let the rest of us know what you think works, what you've seen that works. And please like, subscribe, hit that bell, because subscriptions don't really matter anymore apparently. And please check out my other videos, follow me on Spotify, all that good stuff. And I will catch you later. Thanks, y'all.